So I'm sitting here live with my good friend and partner in so many different adventures that I've been a part of with Catalyst.
Yeah.
Dating back to, I don't know. Well, your teen years.
Yeah.
My, before I had gray hair and was balding years. And, yeah. Oh, yeah, man. It's getting gray. Dang. It's getting bad, dude.
Where has the time gone?
I know. So, Mr. Chris Adams, man behind Method Living Productions. I don't want to get. I want you to share about that. But I really want to frame up what this episode is about, because we're going to get to hear about some of the cool stuff you're doing, and I think what you're doing with Method Living Productions is going to provide a lot of value to a lot of people that are listening. But more than what you're doing is the story behind how you got to what you're doing. Right. So if you follow us on this podcast and you follow what we do through the Catalyst Collective, you know that one of our core passions is helping bring someone's unique purpose to life. And so Chris's story in particular has a special meaning for me, because back in the day when Catalyst was only a little infant baby, a thought, and we were thinking, what do we do? How do we help bring people's unique gifts and passions and purposes to life? We had this punk kid in the youth group who
that is not a fair descriptor of me at all.
It was totally, and I'm being kind there. And so that's totally the right descriptor. And so we were thinking, what does Chris want to do? Chris was very much into movies, had thought about film, but really hadn't filmed much to that point. I don't even know if you knew how to work a camera.
No.
Right?
In high school, no.
No.
Not at all.
So here we were, this broke ministry, and really our operating budget is like $500 a month. And we had, I don't know, maybe $2,000 in the bank account. And all we knew is that someone in the ministry wanted to experiment with film. And we thought, well, you know what? We want to get things on film. So how about we get a camera, put it in this kid's hands, and let him start filming? And how old were you then? Like,
I don't know. It depends on what year we're talking about. If we're going back to like 2012, I was definitely out of high school at that time. But, it really just depends on how far back you want to go, how early in
I just remember how ugly the camera was.
That too.
How big and clunky it was, and how like we were all like, dude, this is awesome. This is a badass camera. Yeah. But I remember it cost like $1,000. So we took like half of our operating budget. There we go. And we bought this camera, and we're like, here, go figure it out. Right.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And you did. You grabbed it, ran with it, and I even think that some of the horrendous videos you shot with it are still buried in the archives of our YouTube channel.
I can find all of them.
There you go. They're out there.
Yep.
But I think what evolved from there is something worth talking about, because everyone's listening has had this hunch that they should be doing more. That there's something they want to get into, but they're not sure how. They're not sure if they're qualified. They're not sure of a lot of things. And I call this kind of our journey to purpose. Mm-hmm. Like, if we have a hunch on something that we would like to pursue, but we're unsure if we're the right person to pursue it, or if it's the right timing, or whatever it is, a lot of times that paralyzes us. We don't move at all. And so in part of your journey toward purpose, you have to constantly be overcoming insecurities, fear, anxiety, and just taking leaps of faith, just doing it. And so as I've been watching you all these years, Chris, that's exactly what you're doing. That's how you eventually brought Method Living Productions to life, and this is a story worth us talking about. So let's kind of jump in there. The first thing I want to do is kind of talk honestly about, and we'll have time to go into what is Method Living Productions. Mm-hmm. But I want people to understand kind of the pieces that make you you. This goes back to our purpose project and how we help people unlock their gifts, talents, and passions. One of the first things that we talk about is life experiences. So, as you think back on your life experiences, Chris, positive and negative, mm-hmm. what do you think are some of the things in your life that have shaped you and maybe even foreshadowed this passion you have for film?
Well, so there's a couple different things I could probably go back to. If I dive back into specifically going back to the school years, growing up, middle school, leading into high school, a lot of where everything has come from has kind of been shaped by just being involved in the theater, enjoying the idea of conveying story in some way other than just writing it down and putting it in a book or reading it. It's more of how do I convey a story through just acting or, watching stories being conveyed in movies, and how does that come across? How do you get a full story in like an hour and a half, 2 hours? So all those kinds of things combined and were of interest to me at that time. So yeah, I mean,
you got into theater at what age?
That was in middle school, so probably about, I want to say it was the 6th grade.
Because I remember going to one of your high school plays.
Right. Yeah.
Not middle school. Didn't make it to middle school. But middle school, you're drawn to theater, and you have this love for how to tell stories.
Yeah, and then a piece of it also comes, like coming to theater in 6th grade, just comes from the fact that my brother, who's older, he was involved in theater during his high school years, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then my dad, as I grew up, was a performing magician. Mm-hmm. He would do birthday parties for kids and all kinds of stuff. So entertainment as a whole, or being able to entertain or convey story, as it were, is something that I think was ingrained in at least the men of my family.
Okay.
So
yeah, great, beautiful. And so you have this background in the arts, the creative, mm-hmm. Entertainment. You're seeing it being modeled. You're getting into it in high school. There's not a college track for this, really. I mean, there is in some degree, but a lot of this is kind of you learn by doing. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about like how did you know you had the desire for it? But how did you know you started to have some of the talent for it? What do you think are some of your natural talents?
I don't know. I would say some of my natural talents have been, I guess, I would say probably diving in and being able to catch some of the some deeper meaning sometimes in the way things are conveyed or shown, mm-hmm. And just trying to figure out on the back end, okay, maybe what was the thought process of the people who are conveying those ideas, showing those ideas. Like, you can go back to middle school, high school. You can talk about doing plays or stage shows, and then how that translates into watching movies, or even further on now, actually pulling out the camera and shooting video in any capacity. And there's a lot of thought that goes into that stuff, even on the back end when you're sitting in front of a computer screen, and trying to cut together pieces of footage to make it all seamless and actually convey a solid thought from like almost a million different sources at one time, whether it's audio or video. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I just think I found as I started playing with it a little bit more that I think I have a natural instinct to being able to picture and know, okay, what goes where and when at what time in order to get this thought out appropriately.
Okay, so let's go back to middle school for a minute. Middle school or high school area. What were some of the things that you felt like came natural to you? What was easy? Or someone would have said, Chris, you're so good at fill in the blank.
Staying quiet and out of the way.
Staying quiet and out of the way. Okay.
That was, yeah. I mean, honestly, like, I think that's also like a big reason why mm-hmm. I'm pushing forward in a lot of this stuff, is because the whole idea of story intrigues me, because you'll have people who don't tell their stories, or they don't get to tell their stories because they just want to stay quiet, they just want to stay out of the way, they just want to push through and get through those parts of life. So that's what intrigues me about that. As far as like, I mean, back in middle school, did I really know any of my talents or gifts? Not really. I knew that I had an interest in the theater and wanted to explore that a little bit more, but outside of that, I wasn't really into math. Mm-hmm. To be quite frankly, reading bored me. Mm-hmm. All this, just the general school stuff, just anything I experienced there bored me. I never got into sports, so I really am coming from the place of, this is the quiet kid that nobody paid attention to, who just got through school and moved on with his life. Mm-hmm. Not in a depressing way. Like, I wasn't going through school going, man, I wish people would love me or whatever. Like, it's just go to school, do the thing, get out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of so I don't think I really got a whole lot of experience kind of exploring different passions while I was in school. There wasn't really a whole lot of focus on that when I was younger, as much as, say there is now, and being able to, kind of have control over where I'm going and what I'm doing in life at this point.
Now, you consider yourself an introvert, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Very much.
So Myers-Briggs personality type? We're big around that here.
Mm-hmm.
What's yours?
I am an ISFJ.
ISFJ.
Now, I haven't taken it recently, so that's what it was the last time I looked at it.
Okay. And so do you think that's worked for you or against you as you've pursued this creative realm of film?
See, there's a part of me that believes, eyes can be very creative. I don't know if there's necessarily a direct correlation to being an introvert and being creative, but I think you have more of an ability to get deeper inside of yourself and pull that creativity out as an eye than you do anywhere else. However, trying to start and run my own business is definitely something I believe is counter to my personality type.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of looking at that personality type and going, forget you, I'm gonna do what I want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so there's different mixes there. I would say the eye is definitely processing more internally, and as you described earlier, you're watching movies at a young age. You're processing the story.
Yeah.
You're drawing out deeper meanings, and that might be a little bit more than other personalities might do it, because you're looking for themes and symbolism. Things that are processing a lot.
Right, and in the same vein, I can also say, like, even from an earlier age, whenever the invention of DVDs came around, because they didn't really have this option on VHS tapes. Whenever DVDs came around, they had the special features. I'm one of the ones that you would find combing through all the special features, just because I was fascinated with all the work and all the process that it took to go and create even just the simplest of scenes in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that kind of bleeds into why I have such an interest now in what I'm doing.
So if I gave you unlimited time, money, and resources to chase after anything you wanted to in this world, there's nothing stopping you, what would you be doing?
I would be finding a way to connect. Essentially, what I think it boils down to is connecting people with other people. I keep going back to it, through the use of story. I think everybody's story needs to be heard by somebody else in some capacity, because everybody can help everybody else. Now, one person may not be helping a million, but one person might help one or two people who could go on to help a million. It's the odd pyramid scheme of life, essentially, where I think that somebody has gone through something specific in their life, and maybe their life purpose is to share what they've gone through in order to help somebody else who's going through the same thing. And so, you're looking at me back when I was in middle school and high school, quiet, out of the way. Is there somebody else now who feels the same way? They're in school, they're quiet, they're out of the way, they're just introverted, whatnot. Can my story and how I'm trying to create this company and help other people tell their stories, can that story help that person?
Okay, beautiful. So I'm starting to see all these pieces that make you. You've put them together, and you've found a path. But that path has not been a linear, easy, straight path. And I won't get, I don't want to get into all your background and more than what you feel comfortable sharing. But I do know that support in your life, whether it be people, whether it be finances, has been extremely limited. You've had to fight for every single thing that you've gotten and still do. So talk to us about some of the challenges. What have been the biggest challenges along the way? Because we're talking, and we even mentioned how old you are now, but you just had a birthday.
Yep.
You surpassed the 3-0 mark.
Oh gosh.
So what has been some of the biggest challenges along the way here?
Some of the biggest challenges, I would almost even say, right now, it's some of the same challenges are still going on even now. What I'm experiencing at the moment, which would be the correlation or the dichotomy of time versus money. I can have all the time in the world to accomplish the stuff I need to accomplish, but none of the money at all in order to purchase the things I need to in order to accomplish those goals.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can go get a job. I can kind of put everything I want to do as far as moving this business along kind of on hold to a degree in order to save up the money so I can, continue to have a roof over my head as well as work towards my goal, but then it just slows everything down. And so I think that is, and I don't think that's unique to me at all either. I think that's the entrepreneur lifestyle.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You're describing the grind. What I hear you saying is having to find work that pays the bills
Mm-hmm.
and helps you cover your expenses so that you can continue developing the business until that gets to a point where it's self-sustaining.
Yep.
That journey has been one of the biggest struggles. And so in those times where you felt like quitting, why didn't you quit?
I'm somebody who has always kind of I will quit the things that I don't deem necessary, and then I will stick with the things that I believe are the only option.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of, say, why I'm still sticking with my idea for the business is because for my life, I know what I've experienced, say, working in a retail environment or working at a bank or stuff like that. I don't want to go back to that kind of job. First and foremost, a small part of this is I just really don't want to work for anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
That's at least a piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to set my own boundaries, my own challenges, and my own rules for what I can and can't do with my business.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I'm looking at my life and the trajectory it's going and what I know I'm good at and the things I know I'm not good at, and I'm stuck with the idea of here's the honest truth. There's no other way this can go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it comes down to when you don't see another option, then quitting isn't an option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think one thing about your personality type is that you're very in tune with your core values, and when you have locked in on what you know is most important to you, it's like you're unwavering, and that's what I hear you describing
Mm-hmm.
in this process. Is what's most important to you and what's not, and this journey, no matter how it ends, sticking to it and focusing on it is what's most important to you, and that's part of the strength of your personality type. What else have you learned about yourself in the process of developing Method Living?
Yeah, well, one of the things I learned, and this is another one of the things I struggle with and still battle with, is I am horrible at self-discipline,
Mm-hmm.
which is not the thing that an entrepreneur wants to have, because it is up to you. Like, again, working for myself, it's up to me. If I don't meet my own deadlines, if I don't set my own goals and attain them myself, then there's no one else to keep me accountable to that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, of course, I can have clients, and if I set a time and date with a client as to when I'm going to have their video produced for them, well, then of course now I'm accountable to them.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, they become my boss,
Mm-hmm.
which is perfectly fine. That's kind of the way I want it.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, if I'm not up in the morning and doing what I need to do, I feel like I've already failed for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a battle with, okay, how do I just push through the feeling of failure for the day because I didn't get up when I initially wanted to, or get started when I initially wanted to, and just suck it up. And okay, from this point in the day on, we have to make good use of the day, because I'm at the point where if I don't do something towards my goal, towards what I'm trying to attain per day, I feel like I can just throw that day away. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's just,
Mm-hmm.
that day was meaningless. It didn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
And some people might consider that you're just being hard on yourself. You're not giving yourself enough leeway. And whether there's truth to that or not, I'm not sure. But for the most part, is the constant battle mentally for me to get up and get done what needs to get done, to the point where I'm starting to set new boundaries and new rules for myself and how I operate the business, just so I can make the deadlines and meet those goals I need to be making.
I think you describe accurately the psychological warfare we go through as entrepreneurs or anyone who's trying to bring an idea to life. like it's a battle.
Mhm.
Every day's a grind. You wake up some days feeling like a failure, like you're not going to accomplish much. You wonder if that's going to continue. Some days it feels like we're firing on all cylinders and you knocked it out of the park, and then you got everything in between.
Mhm.
But I think one of the things I might have heard you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we think about quitting and we think about, you know, we take into consideration the ups and the downs of this journey toward purpose. You know, everybody needs that kind of baseline that I call it, that we can bounce up from. So for me, when I feel like I'm at my lowest, I think about regret. I think about, if I don't give this my all, have I given this my all, 110%? Because if I haven't and I stop now, I will regret it the rest of my life and I won't get it out of my head. And my answer is no, I haven't. I know I have more to give, and so I keep going. And so for you, I hear like what maybe some of your baseline might be that you spring back from is when you get at those lowest points, maybe you think about, but what else would I do? I can't do anything else. I don't want to do anything else. This is it. It's like that desperation of like, I've got to make this work because I'm not falling back on anything else. Does that sound about right?
I mean, that's exactly it. I'm at the point where, you know, I got laid off my last job, which is perfectly fine because the severance was nice and really helped me springboard into the business I wanted to lead. But at the same time, like, if you look at it, you know, besides the fact that I'm pushing forward and starting my own business, more or less been unemployed, kind of doing odd and end jobs here and there just to keep making ends meet. And so there's not really anything at that point for me to fall back on. Like, I'm sure I can still go find a part-time job somewhere and it'd be perfectly fine. But at the same time, like, I'm not looking at, like, if I try to go get a 40-hour-a-week job now just to try to, you know, come back from everything. It's like, yeah, but now you have to explain why you failed at your own business to the point where you just needed to come back and get a job. And I just don't want to be in that position.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yep, I love it. That's and I think if you're listening to this and you're thinking about, all right, I'm pursuing my passion. My question is, are you all in or are you half in? Because if you're half in, it's not going to work out. You might as well go redirect and do something else. You're only going to bring this purpose to life if you feel like it's this or death. Like, there's nothing else you can do. That's how devoted and committed you have to be to something, you know, that you truly want to pursue and see come to life. So let's talk about what you're doing now, because you're at a point where things are starting to get liftoff. You've created a lot of stuff, I know, for our organization, Catalyst, and you got a lot of stuff coming out, like specifically the stuff we were looking at tonight, some of the intro videos that you created for our website that are not yet out, but they will be soon. Those are awesome. Like, you're doing quality work, and it's super crazy affordable, right? So talk to us about what are the services that Method Living Productions is offering at this point?
So right now, and I'll be just completely honest with all the audience too, I'm still building up my equipment. I'm still building up basically the things that I can do. The idea is to get to a certain level so I can continue to get cameras, continue to get more equipment so I can do more and more things. Right now, like, for instance, the goal in mind is to be able to do weddings on my own. In order to do that, there's a certain level of equipment I need to be able to afford and get. I'm not there yet, but I have in mind how long it can take me, give or take the amount of projects I get between now and then to attain that. However, what I can do right now is I've looked over, and these are projects that I've done for other people. I've done very small, like, I wouldn't call them music videos, but I've done things like shooting just somebody laying out three songs, doing a demo essentially of performing. I've done videos for people who are engaged and just kind of want to have a visual representation of what their relationship means prior to going into marriage. And they can share that with their friends and family. I've done videos for businesses, doing interviews and kind of getting testimonials and whatnot. I've done advertisements and people who are professionally trying to create a video that they would turn around and sell for their business. there's just a little bit. I've dipped my hand a little bit in everything just to kind of explore and grow what it is I can do. So
Yeah.
there's very little right now as far as what it is I can do outside of my technical limitations at the minute.
Yeah. So and you have on your website, and what's your website is Method Living Productions.
Yeah, methodlivingproductions.com.
.com.
And that is like I'm in the process of overhauling that. So what it looks like right now is not going to be what it looks like, say, a month or two from now.
But you've got some videos on there, and I've seen you do brilliant stuff for events that you've recorded. You know, you mentioned engagement videos, small business, medium business, promo videos, all kinds of different stuff, and it really is quality work. And what I like about working with you is that you really take the time to understand what someone is trying to get out of the video, rather than just showing up and shooting whatever I think I need you to shoot. You know, you're thinking about the goals, you're thinking about who's going to see it, how it's going to come across, all that kind of stuff. We live in a digital age where we know we want to capture things on film,
right?
But we're not sure exactly what we want to do with them. And I feel like you're in a good position to kind of step in and help people find answers to those questions too.
Well, yeah. I mean, the big piece of that is audience is everything.
Yeah.
Who's your audience? And if you know who your audience is, you know the direction you want your video to go in, because you got to cater to the audience. Because if you don't, then they're not gonna buy into you. They're not gonna buy into what it is you're trying to convey or sell.
Yeah, love it, man. Real quick, I know you're on a you've also launched out an adventure kind of partnership with your brother.
Yeah.
On a YouTube channel. Tell us about that.
So the idea there is that I've just always, again, going back to the movies, I love movies. I love the way they convey stories, to the point where, like, if I go back, like, I even had the thoughts of creating my own studio, my own production company as far as like creating movies goes. I've even like backtracked on that and thought, you know what, it's not so much that anymore. Like, yeah, there's a lot of people who have dreams to make it in Hollywood and all that, and I think that's very valuable in order to push the art forward and everything. But I think we're in an age now where YouTube is actually starting to rise up the ranks and become king, and being able to create content and share stories in a macro way actually benefits a lot more people, and can reach a lot more people in different ways than necessarily a movie that hits the theaters. Because you can create a big budget movie, and that's going to hit people different ways, but you can create a very personal and short 5-10 minute video on YouTube, and that could completely change somebody's life. Now, what we have done with YouTube right now is that we have started a channel called Sena Fanatics, which is basically me and my brother just diving into our love of movies. We'll watch trailers and kind of react to them. We'll review movies as we get a chance to go out and see them, and kind of just share with everybody our love for movies, our knowledge based on movies, which has led to some pretty cool connections there. But I think the idea that I really wanted to push forward with Sena Fanatics is to build an audience for that. And I know movies, my love for movies, our love for movies is a great way to build an audience, because people will follow in on that passion as well. But kind of it's a way in for people to get to know me, who I am, and kind of my thought processes. And then I can springboard off of that, rise up the ranks of my own YouTube channel, other projects and stuff that I want to eventually start working on, and hopefully make the connections with an audience and with the right people at some point, that Method Living is not only just now a video production business, but is a means that other people can come in, work alongside with me and with each other to tell their stories and get their stories out to people. And the best way to do that is to build the audience, to let people know who you are and get to that point. And we just thought that Sena Fanatics and movies and our love for movies is a great first step, a great doorway into this is who we are.
Yeah, great. You're doing it, man. You've been doing it for a long time. You're walking this narrow path. You are, figuring it out by doing, bringing your unique purpose to life. I love it. And I think it's fun watching the journey and seeing you get to a point of really taking this to the next level. Like, you're at the verge of really breaking through a level you've tried to break through for a long time, and you're almost there. And so Man, I just encourage those listening, go check out what Chris is doing, methodlivingproductions.com. Go check him and his brother out, especially if you're a movie buff. You got to go check out what they're doing with Sena Fanatics. You can find them on YouTube, Instagram, and all the social media outlets.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely worth it. And hit them up. You got an idea of something you might want to get on film? Reach out and have a conversation with Chris.
That would be methodliving@gmail.com. Real simple way. I'm going to see that immediately and be able to answer. So,
Awesome.
So that's how people can reach out to me. And I think if I could just have a final thought for some folks out there too, at the point of this recording, I did just turn 30. And so whenever you reach that next decade, you're always looking back going, how did I spend this last decade of my life? Did I get to where I want to be? And there's a lot of things I wish I had hooked onto or latched onto sooner so I could be a little bit further than I am now. But those are the kinds of thoughts that kind of bring you down. So I would say that everybody else out there who is in the position of maybe they're not necessarily reaching the next decade of their life, but they're in a position where they're kind of thinking, maybe I should have done more with this part. It's not too late, because I heard the phrase is there's two best times to start something. It's 10 years ago and right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could have started something 10 years ago, but you can also start something right now. So
Yep.
There's that. And then one other phrase that I've just stuck with is, I believe it's growth requires you to give up security right now. So, I mean, these are things that you constantly battle with and struggle with, but you can get there.
100%. Right on, man. Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate all that you do, man. And if you follow our podcast in particular, you're going to see more of Chris popping into episodes every now and then. So it's great to have you on and talk about more of your story, dude.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, man.